Live from the Clarity from Chaos studios, heard worldwide, it's Dave Campbell. On every episode, Dave and his guests explore, discuss, and work on solutions to some of life's biggest challenges. So, if you're ready, be prepared to be enlightened, amused, and even shocked by what you hear. And now, the real, the authentic, the one and only Dave Campbell.
Welcome back to another edition of Clarity from Chaos. In this age of constant information overload, it just seems like you just can't turn in any direction to find the truth on anything. Well, this show's mission is to try to bring some of that clarity to the chaos that surrounds you. We welcome back the best-selling author of Psy-War, Enforcing the New World Order, Dr. Robert Malone. Dr. Malone's book exposes the history and tactics of modern psychological warfare waged on the American public and offers a way forward for citizens to resist totalitarian controls. Welcome back.
Thanks a lot for having me on, David.
You bet.
Interesting times.
Do what?
It's interesting times we live in now, isn't it?
Oh, it certainly is. So let's start out with what I consider something that was monumental, and that's RFK's confirmation as HHS. What are your thoughts around that? Because I think that was extraordinary that Trump would bring him forward to put him on his cabinet.
So let's recap a little bit the arc here. Bobby had some polling very early on that people aren't aware of that suggested that he really could get traction within the Democratic Party. And so he came out in Boston with his campaign announcement, decided to run for president, and declared that he was going to represent, quote, Kennedy Democrats. And what he meant by that, if you listen carefully to his initial presentation, was he was talking about really great society pre-Carter Democrats and the Democrat Party that had been represented by his father and his uncle.
Right.
And that prospect, that dog failed to hunt, I think is how they might say it down south.
No, because those people don't exist anymore, unfortunately. Or
well,
they're
and the Democrat Party wouldn't allow him to have a voice.
right.
And so then he decided, in part with assistance from Nicole Shanahan, as you'll recall, to run as independent. And she bankrolled, to a large extent, the campaign to get him on all the ballots. And it became, I was, back in the day, I was part of dialogue about these things. I don't advise Bobby, and I haven't really had anything substantial in terms of interaction with him until very recently, for about a year. People seem to assume that I was an advisor to him, etc. But the campaign that he eventually ran as an independent was, I had many friends in that campaign, but I wasn't directly involved in it. So he decided of necessity, really with regret, to abandon his campaign as a traditional Democrat or as a Kennedy Democrat within the Democratic Party, ran it as an independent, and garnered generally single-digit endorsement and approval, and faced and I was asked at one point by one of his more central advisors what I thought he ought to do. And my comment was, I thought he ought to stick it out. He was certainly behaving with integrity. He was leading a new initiative that then it was starting to be called MAHA, as well as the more traditional Medical Freedom Coalition, and that he obviously wouldn't prevail in the election, but if he stuck it out, then he would be in a position of being a senior statesman and the bona fide leader of this new movement. Instead, he ran into this moral dilemma that if he was to take that pathway, which might have been, at the time looked like it might have been more favorable for him, he might well end up throwing the election to the Democrat Party, which at that point he had come to loathe for the most part. I'm putting words in his mouth, but that's my sense.
Well, they certainly threw enough roadblocks in his way, right? I mean, they
didn't play nice.
No, they didn't.
No, they didn't. They were pretty wicked. So he decided to cast his lot in, and I can tell you there was just a lot of consternation and soul searching around the issue of casting his lot with Donald Trump. And there was some foreshadowing by Nicole that he might do that. And she was not really supporting that decision, as I recall back in time. Now, she does now. But he threw in with Trump in this spectacular announcement that just lit up the country and was done with, sparklers and all kinds of great visual effects,
Yeah.
and gave a speech, to remember in endorsing Trump. And then, together largely with Tulsi, he went on tour supporting Donald Trump, often in swing states, with a message that particularly appealed to younger voters, a fragment of the left, and mothers. I mean, that was kind of the core constituency that they hit. A strong case can be made that if Donald Trump would have won without Bobby, it would have been squeaky tight. His coming over really made the Trump campaign yield the success that it did. And I don't know what the quid pro quo was for that, what agreements had been struck. Apparently, they really hit it off after Bobby called President Trump and expressed empathy over the assassination attempt, something that Bobby was in a unique position to empathize
To understand.
about.
Yeah.
And so that, I think, really broke the ice. They formed a friendship. Personally, I think Donald Trump is a little bit starstruck with both Bobby and Elon. He
Yeah.
loves a media figure. He loves a star, and
Yeah.
so they hit it off. And Bobby made a recent comment to the effect that after he was confirmed, everything Donald Trump ever said to him, he stuck by. I'm paraphrasing, but basically he said Donald Trump has always kept his word with him. And it, what I recall, as this progressed, and the election was won, was what was initially offered was a czar position, which would not require Bobby to be confirmed. And that czar position would be given oversight responsibility for reorganization and restructuring at USDA, CDC, FDA, and NIH. So not CMS that Dr. Oz is running. And USDA that's an inter cabinet level agenda. And it appears that RFK said, no, I don't want to do that. I want to take the risk of the confirmation process, and I want to go for HHS secretary. And my sense is that Trump said yes because he had a sense of obligation to Bobby for his contribution to the election. That's trying to speculate about what's going on in Donald Trump's head, which is pretty, I think, risky.
Which is interesting.
Yeah. But for whatever reason, the initial offer of a czar position was not what materialized, and he stood up for HHS secretary with the significant chance that he would not prevail in the confirmation hearings.
Yeah, I was surprised, Doctor, that
I can tell you that Bobby and the people around Bobby did not consider that a done deal at all.
Oh, no. No, I was, between Kennedy and Gabbard, I thought those were the two, Getz dropped out early because but Kennedy and Gabbard both, I figured were going to go right down to the wire and may not make it. And it surprised me that Kennedy had a bigger buffer, quite frankly, than Patel ended up with today.
Yes. What was the vote for Cash? I missed that. I'm here at CPAC.
51-49.
Yeah. So my sense is that Kennedy kind of gave up too much in the confirmation hearings. He agreed to too many requirements. That was kind of my gripe about that sausage making process. And that included statements back at the time we covered it in our Substack, that Kennedy agreed that he would not second guess the ACIP, the Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices at the CDC. He wouldn't question that. He wouldn't reorganize it, and generally made statements to the effect that he was not going to meddle in the vaccine enterprise. But the last week, there has been some major shifts. I
Yeah.
was under the impression, what I'd observed was that, not only me, I was asked for a CV, but then crickets after that. I was asked for a CV and kind of a letter and to put out some stuff about how reform might be done at this agency or that agency. And I did all that stuff and then absolutely got nothing back. And what I noticed was that all the people that were put up for these initial positions were people that had not taken a strong stance about the mRNA products or the other genetic vaccines.
Right.
Kash Patel, I'm sorry, not Kash, Jay Bhattacharya was up until recently in the position of the vaccines were appropriate for high risk groups, but not for the general population. And so he was more subtle, nuanced. He wasn't questioning Operation Warp Speed. He wasn't really saying that the vaccine product should be withdrawn, like I said, almost 3 years ago, together with other physicians. And that was
Right.
kind of the story all the way through. The appointments were people who really didn't come out against the jab. And there was a lot of pushback, at least in the base of people that Bobby had brought along. I think there was kind of a growing sense of betrayal. And then something has happened over the last week and a half. And suddenly there was this article that came out in the UK talking about that in the senior levels in the Trump administration, there was discussions about pulling the COVID mRNA products. And by the way, as an aside, I'm told just like in the last 24-hour news cycle, the European Union has approved COVID, self-replicating RNA COVID vaccines. So they are absolutely on a different trajectory from what seems to be happening in the Trump administration. And all of this happened, remember we had the Stargate kerfuffle on day 2 of the presidency, in which Larry basically rushed out the idea that this new hyper AI capability that he wanted to build was the magic, trying to sell it to the president, I think, and to the general public, that it's going to enable the building of customized mRNA cancer vaccines for all, which was a total bunch of hooey. It was just a sales job. The science doesn't support that, and people have been trying to build those kinds of products for a long time and completely failed. So there was that, where Donald Trump seemed to be endorsing mRNA technology. And then there was this whole, as Peter Hotez darkly foreshadowed the prior December, suddenly with the beginning of the Trump administration, you had this escalating fear, or what I call psychological bioterrorism, this escalating narrative about bird flu, which has been, this particular strain has been circulating for a couple of years now. There's nothing new here, but suddenly it was getting heated in the press. And there was the USDA authorized a more standard Zoetis bird flu vaccine, but it's a mismatched. It's H5N2, not H5N1. So you're going to have a mismatched, leaky traditional flu vaccine deployed in chickens, which is just going to drive evolution of that virus to become more vaccine resistant. The growing voices complaining about the insane prices for eggs. And I'm told, like my friend that's down from New Jersey here to CPAC, she said that the stores sell out of eggs up in New Jersey like within a couple hours of opening each morning.
Yeah, they're limiting them here already. So, it's like,
all I can say is I'm glad I've got a bunch of hens, because I've got more eggs than I can eat. But, so it goes. I guess I should have invested in Bitcoin. Instead, I invested in hens.
I think you were smarter.
So I can tell you that there has been, I've heard from inside sources, there has been active discussion at the senior levels in the administration of promoting mRNA vaccines for bird flu for humans, and then promoting mRNA vaccines for bird flu in chickens. And this has prompted there's people that are now within the administration that were put in place before Bobby's confirmation. So it's kind of done behind his back a little bit. Are real, true believer advocates of, vaccines are the only solution for infectious disease and viral disease. And so this this narrative I knew was building steam in the White House, and something, I've written a bunch of essays, other people have written essays, but something, what I hear, David, this is the first time I've talked about this in public, but what I'm hearing from insiders is that, but confirmed by this UK article, Daily Mail, I think it was, that suddenly there's an openness to considering pulling the mRNA COVID vaccines off the market. And suddenly there's an openness to rethinking USDA policies on these mass culls. Maybe it's that the numbers came out and they've spent $1.2 billion so far in compensating owners and managing these mass culls. And it's not doing anything to slow down bird flu because, of course, bird flu is endemic in wild birds, not the least of which is waterfowl. And, unless we're going to eliminate all the wild birds, which Mao tried to do once, and it was devastating to agriculture production in China, we're going to be stuck with bird flu. And what I've been advocating now for a while is that we really ought to rethink what we're doing, rethink our policies, and focus more on breeding bird flu resistant birds in terms of poultry flocks.
Yep.
And I'm hearing rumor that alternative way of thinking is starting to gain traction within the administration, which would be incredibly hopeful. And then you have Bobby coming out in the last week, first saying VAERS, basically paraphrasing, VAERS sucks, and we got to get rid of it, the vaccine adverse event reporting system. And we got to come up with something better, which I was a little discouraged about because that would potentially wash the hands of the bad actors at the CDC that's manipulated that system clean, because the evidence of their malfeasance would never really be looked at and we would just move on. So I wasn't overjoyed with that. But then, that was like, was it late last week or the beginning of this week? Everything's so fast in Trump time now. It's just been a month, right? It's crazy.
Yeah.
But, and that's one of the themes here at CPAC is, there has never been a kickoff to a presidency like this in the history of the United States.
No, not at all. And you sit and look, and I was reading about this last night. I think he's down to just 4 more, and maybe even less than that now, 4 more cabinet positions to fill. And he's filled at the pace that he's gone, he just eclipsed everybody up until this point, which surprises me, Doctor, because that required the Republicans to act like Democrats, all of them to stay the course. You know what I mean?
All except Mitch McConnell.
All except, well, and then the occasional Murkowski and the occasional Collins. But for the most part, when he said charge, when Thune said charge, they're all marching together. Which
actually doing it.
Exactly, which is amazing on its own, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So
yes, so then Bobby has come out with these additional statements that he's really gonna, we had the empowerment of the Maha Commission with this executive order that is a cross-cutting interagency cooperative task force that's been set up with Bobby heading it, includes Treasury even. I don't think it included USAID for saying, but you get the point. And in that executive order, it lays out the charter for what the priority stack is for Maha. And they talk about chronic diseases and kind of the general stuff and the refocusing on health promotion as opposed to disease silos and disease treatments. They talk about that, but they really focus in on child's health and chronic childhood diseases. There's talk about autism. There's the possibility to be investigated, determined, and Bobby said this, his position is that not that vaccines cause autism, but rather that the safety and potential adverse events of vaccines have to be more thoroughly investigated, which is kind of consistent with what he's been saying all along, is we need the data and we need to do the proper studies because they haven't been done. And so that's, he's making some pretty strong statements now that I thought he was going to pull his punches on consequent to the various deals that have been struck during his confirmation, but he's come out swinging.
Well, I think part of it, I think everybody has been empowered by Elon, by the fact
Yes.
that Elon's just got in there and it's kind of like, to hell with this, to hell with that. We're going forward. And I think everybody's kind of taking liberty with the fact that Elon has gotten this thing moving in the right direction. And I was listening to the Hannity interview the other night, and Trump looked right at Elon and said, when I sign the executive orders, I give them to Elon to basically, take effect, to go make them work.
Pam Bondi echoed the same thing during her interview here at CPAC about an hour and a half ago, that basically Trump is delegating to
Yeah.
this team of hardcore performers, that
Yep.
they are operating. All these people, a lot of them have pre-existing friendships, some of them quite deep, and like Pam is just ecstatic over cash, and I have a sense that this is a team that right now is operating in coordination under a leader who is taking the position of, I'm authorizing you to do this. I expect you to do it with your heart and soul, and come back to
Yeah.
me if you have a problem and I'll solve it.
Well, he's running it like his real estate empire, right? That's exactly the way he's running it.
Running it like a
You
business.
know,
He's delegating to competent
exactly.
people and expecting
He's
them to
got
perform.
absolutely. He's got his. But I made, and you're going to laugh at this, but I made the comment the other day that Musk is basically the Da Vinci of my time. Now, he obviously is. I haven't seen him paint or do anything, but when you watch him bring a rocket back and drop it into the same spot that the damn thing left in, 2 weeks before or however, and all we've been doing is dumping billions of dollars into the ocean because we couldn't figure it out. It's
Nobody thought
pretty
it was
amazing.
possible.
Yeah,
There was a
it's pretty
series.
amazing.
One of the things about Musk, I think part of his secret sauce, he's not afraid to fail.
Well, and that's an interesting point because we have spent the last 4 generations taking failure out of our children's lives.
Yeah.
They have participation trophies now. They can't lose. They can't do this. They can't do that. So they've lost that entire learning experience that comes with failure. And I think
And
that's the reason
learning
you
to
see
fail.
it. Huh? Do what? Yeah, exactly. And I think that's the reason that you see the entitlement scenario from so many of them, because if they had grown up basically getting punched in the nose because they made some stupid comment to somebody at the wrong time, and they learned about it, and they learned, instead of standing up, to shut up, those kind of lessons I think would have gone a long way, but they never learned them because we took that completely out of.
So I just watched Elon being interviewed for, it seemed like 45 minutes. And he's an interesting character. He is absolutely on the spectrum. And his communication skills are not 110%.
No.
But he came out like a rock star. He came out with a great big gold chain, huge sunglasses on, a cap, a "Make America Great Again" cap that he called the Gothic version. It's all dark and gray.
Oh, yeah.
A black T-shirt with some gold pattern on it. I don't know what it said. A black sport coat over that, black jeans and boots. And so he comes out. He's like jumping around, yay! And the crowd is going wild here in DC at CPAC. And then I'm sure you know who Javier Milei is,
Yeah,
president of Argentina, right?
absolutely.
Okay. So Javier Milei then comes out from backstage and he brings this great big chainsaw. And he gives it to Musk, and Musk is parading the chainsaw around, obviously as a metaphor for Doge.
Right.
And it created this explicit visual that what Musk is doing and what President Trump is doing is very much informed by what Javier Milei did down in Argentina.
Yep.
with cutting the government there. I mean, in a lot of
Yep.
ways, I think that shall I say, courage or willingness of the Trump administration to take on these big issues, in part, is I don't know that the Trump administration would be this bold at this point in time if Javier Milei had not broken the ice down in
Uh,
Argentina and showed that you could come in and afuerta large
yeah.
segments of the government, right?
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
like they're following the same script.
Yeah, Millier is amazing. He for what he has done. He I mean, it's just incredible when you get to thinking about it. And I agree with you that, and it's the same thing that I think is empowering what we've got going on. Is it seems like a lot of this stuff is just starting to reach critical mass, and the globalists.
We've got to do something about the budget. There's no
Yeah.
question about
Yep. Well, when I can't imagine. I can't imagine the Democrats, and this is the only time I'm going to say this because I think it's really dumb to do this, but I can't believe that Democrats aren't politically smart enough to go, well, that's a damn good idea, and get on board with it instead
it.
of
Yes.
crying and doing all the things that they're doing. Because to
Yeah.
me, that just tells me how politically stupid they are.
Yeah, they're I think they have kind of I think it's another example of groupthink. They've all
Yeah.
told
Okay.
themselves this narrative and
Yeah.
they can't break out of it. They I like to use the term Overton window, the range of accepted political discourse. And within the Democrat Party, it seems that the Overton window is so shut down. They only have a small range of things they can talk about as potential policy things, and it's killing them.
Yeah.
They're not able to adapt to changing conditions, and Trump has just come in shock and awe. He has just bowled them
Well,
over.
absolutely. But make no mistake, both parties are responsible for this crap, right?
Yep.
There is no one party that funded USAID. Both parties did. Both parties have done all of this crap. And you didn't
And the
hear the
deficit,
Republicans. Yeah, you
the
didn't hear the
deficit is not supposed
Republicans.
to hit the can for decades.
Yeah, exactly. So, they should be somewhat chagrined with what Musk is doing right now. And the Democrats ought to just shut up and go sit down, like Carville said.
Yeah, that James Carville was fascinating, wasn't it?
Well, he's absolutely right. You can't, I don't know, it's kind of like you can't fix stupid, right? I just don't understand it.
Well, David, I have a question for you.
Yeah,
Are you tired of winning yet?
no, not at all. And quite frankly, what I really want, and I was talking about this yesterday, and I really haven't done all the research, is holding the cabinet that the dream team, so to speak, that he's assembled to keep them in place for the next Republican president so they can just keep rolling.
That's another one. JD Vance spoke. He did the kickoff for CPAC and great talk. And then I also there's a parallel meeting that happened earlier today of European conservatives that's over in an adjacent hotel. And because I bounced back and forth between Europe and I participate in the Make Europe Great Again movement, I got invited over there. And I don't know, you've heard all the howls of indignation over JD Vance's European speech.
Well,
But
exactly. And I was going to bring that up, Doc.
European conservatives are like, go, 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 go. This is transformational. This is the best thing that ever happened to us.
And they didn't cry about it? They
No,
weren't.
well, this is the European conservatives. Okay? These are the
Okay.
populist conservatives fighting against the European Union bureaucracy and everything else and getting shut down and censored. These are the ones that have been on the receiving end of all this ugly stuff. And they're suddenly finding that they're getting some oxygen and are really grateful for what JD Vance did.
Well, I think they're going to get a lot more oxygen. And quite frankly, CBS ought to go out and maybe instead of sending their anchors to DEI training. Maybe they ought to give them a course in civics or something like that to where they understand the actual history of a lot of this stuff. Because when you sit there and listen to Brennan talk to Rubio about the Holocaust and free speech that was in Germany, it was almost bad enough to make you spit up your coffee.
I think what they need is deprogramming.
They need something. They absolutely need something. And I don't know who's going to do it for them because, you know.
I'll tell you who's going to do it for them, Mr. Market.
Well, that's absolutely right. That's absolutely correct. But then I read today that Lackland has lost the court case to James. So even Fox News may be shifting towards the abyss, which worries me a little bit.
It's my wife is now refusing to call them legacy media. She just calls them dead media.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
it's dead media walking. That's what we're seeing.
That's a good one. Yeah, dead media watching. How's the book doing, by the way? You know?
It's doing good. The truth is that Substack is a amazing tool. We often hit 300,000 to 600,000, sometimes a million views with our daily Substacks. And the other day, for instance, we put out one on methylene blue that just got us an enormous number of subscriptions. Probably the subscriptions for that one essay comes to a revenue that's equivalent to about a third of what we're going to get from the Cywar book, which took us a year to put together. But it seems like the Cywar book is getting more traction these days. I'm putting more effort into marketing it, but
right.
Some of the feedback I've had is that we're being validated in real time, like with the USAID disclosures, et cetera.
Exactly.
So things that the many people saw as kind of tinfoil hats in the book, now they're suddenly saying, "Oh, now I get it. I can see that actually was true."
Well, and I think you know with Vance and his speech in Munich, you know, really reflected with people here on the deep state censorship effort that's going on here. When you know you hear Vance's speech and you kind of go, yeah, you know.
Yeah. So it's, you know, I don't know that what I've been through over the last 4 years was good or bad, but it gave us a decent book.
Yeah.
I don't know that I want to go through it again. And it's still, you know, it hasn't stopped. Just about a month and a half ago, Media Matters did another hit on me. And, you know, and now that the whole Maha thing is heating up and I'm getting perceived as somehow having influence in this more than I had, now there are groups that are coming out after me again, you know, that had kind of died down before. But, you know, it's all, you know, I guess I've toughened up over the last 4 years, and certainly being here at CPAC, this is friendly territory. It's hard for me to get from point A to point B right now without 10 selfies.
Yeah. Well, where can people find your book?
So the politically correct thing I'm supposed to say is you can get it from any good bookseller.
Any good bookseller. Yeah. But do you have a website where they can go out and actually buy it from?
We don't sell it directly.
Oh, okay.
The truth is that Amazon still has it at somewhat of a discount. They've kind of brought it up to the official cost. I think it's still $2 off or something like that.
Okay.
I really suggest for a lot of people, some people are readers. The people that read our Substack generally are readers. If we put out a Substack that's all videos, it doesn't do as well. They want to see a well-written essay. So for people that are readers, God bless you and have at it with a book, but it's a bit of a tome. The rest of us that have busy lives and might want to listen to something in the car or while you're doing chores or mowing the lawn or whatever the thing is, the audiobook is really helpful. Right. And as I was personally recording the audiobook, I found typos in the written one that I'd missed in prior edits. So the audiobook is actually more correct. And it took me long period of time to record it. I recorded it myself. Had to record between 10 in the night and like 4 in the morning because my studio was close enough to the adjacent road that whenever somebody went by in a motorbike,
Traffic.
I had to record. So the audiobook you can only get from Amazon. But you can also buy direct from Skyhorse Publishing, which are the actual publishers.
Oh, from Mr. Lyons.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, I saw Tony and Big Tree here just yesterday.
Did you?
Yeah.
I think I'm going to have him on here shortly. I'd have to look at my schedule.
Tony's a lot of fun to do.
He's an amazing man. We've been talking to Dr. Robert Malone and his book, Psy Wars Enforcing This New World Order. And you're at CPAC having all kinds of fun, and I'm sitting here freezing. It's been an absolute pleasure.
I step outside the hotel, I'm freezing too. It's pretty cold here.
I was going to say, because I'm not that far from you. I'm a little further south, but it's chilly. It's chilly. It's going to get real chilly tonight. So stay warm. Stay warm and have fun at CPAC, Doc.
Okay. Thanks for having me on. And
you bet.
Good luck to all of us.
Yeah. Yeah. God bless, man.
Thank you. Be good.
Thank you for listening. If you would like to listen to more Clarity from Chaos shows on demand, go to clarityfromchaos.buzzsprout.com or send Dave an email at info@clarityfromchaos.com for information on previous shows. You can also listen to the show on Apple Podcast, Spotify, Twitter, or Google Podcast. Until next time, please remember, it's not about waiting for the storm to pass. It's about learning to dance in the rain. Be well, everyone.